This is Discovery Channel's most extreme survival challenge to date. Naked and Afraid, XL 60-Day Legend Special. All contestants enter the wilderness naked, each choosing only 2 survival tools. They must survive 60 days in the Louisiana swamps in primitive ways. Boar King Matt is renowned in the survival world. In the original show, as a former Special Forces member, he famously shot a wild boar alone, earning his nickname. Matt is well regarded for generously sharing food he hunts. In a 40-day challenge in an African valley, he secured a key antelope when his team nearly starved, turning the tide. He also competed in aquatic survival with Ed in the South China Sea. Though the jungle is his forte, he narrowly lost to Ed by minutes, earning Ed's respect. Teammate Riley, a beautiful lady in her early 30s who looks younger, enjoys extreme sports and travels the world, returning home occasionally for months of car racing. She has participated in 3 challenges, once solo, demonstrating both skill and beauty. The third member of the Boar King's team is Ryan, another former Special Forces member. He once solo fought a caiman in a South American swamp, unharmed, securing it as a valuable protein source. Ryan's long beard makes him look 20 years older, though he is quite young. A transport ship delivered the 3 challengers to the designated riverbank. Across the swamp, 3 starter packs hung from tree branches, containing flint, a machete, a cast iron pot, fish hooks and line, crocodile hooks and rope, and 3 deer skins for the coming winter. Excluding the deer skins, they had to choose 6 items for their 60-day survival challenge. To reach their gear, they had to cross the swamp, where water levels were as unpredictable as the tides, rising to nearly a meter deep. After crossing and reaching the land, they approached the equipment box. Matt pressed the F key for his chosen initial gear and discarded the unwanted with the R key, then led his team deeper into the swamp. A few steps later, they spotted a snake, a local copper-banded snake, appearing dark and epic-skinned. Its movements showed a regal ferocity, startling Matt momentarily. Matt clarified that the broadcast showed the wrong footage. The snake was just a common juvenile copper-banded snake. Not fearful of snakes, Matt had previously solo killed a spitting sidewinder in Africa. He steadied his mind, restrained the snake with a forked stick, and quickly decapitated it with a knife. The trio had just left the hotel, well fed from their meal, and shortly after disembarking from the plane, they all agreed they were not in need of food. Thus, they unanimously decided to use the snake as bait to hunt larger prey. They continued deeper into the swamp until around 4 in the afternoon when they found a raised area close to a water source, an ideal spot for setting up camp. Being near the water meant easier access to drinking water, reducing the risk of dehydration and conserving energy. The river's bounty also promised a sustainable food source. The higher ground could potentially protect them from crocodiles and predatory animals while providing a clear view. Matt decided to build a shelter on this site to gather survival resources and prepare for the 60-day extreme survival challenge. Ryan surveyed the terrain and noted the only downside was the small size of the clearing, which would require some clearing if they wanted to build a sturdier, long-term shelter. Riley suggested constructing a teepee large enough for 3, which would shorten the initial construction phase and allow them to move in quickly. The structure could be gradually reinforced later. Matt and Ryan respected Riley's opinion. They chose the thickest nearby tree as the main beam and built the structure in the style of a teepee. After completing the main structure, they covered the outer frame with various collected plant fibers to form a semicircular dwelling that somewhat resembled a yurt. Interestingly, the Native Americans, later referred to as Indians, were believed to have migrated from ancient Mongols across the frozen Bering Strait during the Ice Age, which might explain similarities in their architectural styles. Riley, skilled in primitive building, fishing, and foraging, trusted Matt enough to give up her initial equipment of fish hooks. She was pleased to contribute the shelter construction plan to the team. During the building process, the trio was in high spirits and joyful, especially Ryan, who seemed ecstatic to be teaming up with Matt. It appeared more like a vacation than a survival challenge. Matt, however, remained relatively calm. He noted that their situation wasn't entirely optimistic, as the swamp was a harsh environment filled with dangers like crocodiles, water moccasins, and even seemingly harmless mosquitoes that could cause significant problems. Therefore, after the initial construction, their first task was to make a fire. The swamp was dominated by insects at night, and the smoke and heat from the fire could effectively reduce their impact. Ants, appearing in large numbers, were fearless and left no vegetation where they passed. The challenges from mosquitoes were particularly severe as they could prevent sleep for days, often leading to participants quitting the challenge. They completed the basic structure of the shelter at dusk, and the campfire was already lit. Matt kept adding fuel to the fire, saying that without fire, there is nothing. Only with fire can this place become a home. As night fell, it was evident that the facilities built by Matt's team were still insufficient to fend off the swarms of mosquitoes and other flying insects. The air was filled with the buzzing of mosquitoes, with a casual wave of the hand hitting 5 or 6. The trio covered their skin with mud to protect themselves, trying to prevent mosquito bites as much as possible. After a tough night with little sleep, they continued first thing in the morning to fortify the shelter, aiming to make it airtight, increase the smoke density above the shelter, and reduce the living space for mosquitoes, thus making the number of insects inside the shelter manageable. Any mosquito attacks would now come at a cost. Once the shelter was reinforced, they used the copper band snake they had caught the day before as bait. They had marinated the snake overnight with herbs found along the way to prevent it from reviving. Matt set 2 crocodile traps in the river sections frequented by crocodiles, using the processed snake meat. At the start of the challenge, Matt had declared they were going big this time. Capturing a crocodile weighing about 200 pounds could provide energy for over 10 days, which was a strategic target for Matt's team. Matt carefully inspected the bait's condition. He was quite satisfied with the smell, but the snake was too small and might not be tempting enough for the crocodiles. With no better bait available, they had to make do. Matt explained to the audience on screen the principles of crocodile trapping. In this show, we often see crocodile traps being set, but the capture probability is not high. This involves the cumulative probability factors. Different trap locations affect how often the bait appears in the crocodile's line of sight. After optimizing the placement of traps and continually adding bait, the probability of capture gradually increases, and the payoff from catching a crocodile is substantial. On the second morning, the trio looked fairly energetic, but they had used a lot of fuel the previous night to keep the mosquitoes away, and now they were all focused on collecting firewood. At this point, Matt mentioned that his testicles seemed to have been attacked last night, experiencing an unbearable burning sensation. They were now bunched up, resembling a rash, or as if crushed by a vehicle, with both testicles seemingly turning into one. He asked Ryan if he was experiencing the same symptoms. Listening to his complaints, Ryan, who felt no discomfort, gave a meaningful smile. Matt kept observing his testicles with a faint sadness, almost on the verge of tears, while Ryan, on closer inspection, was shocked and covered his mouth. Riley heard their discussion and came over curiously to ask what was happening. Seeing Matt's symptoms, her mouth twisted in surprise. Matt had previously been infected by a flesh-eating bacterium that, if uncontrolled, would cause the tissue to necrotize into a honeycomb pattern. Remembering his past trauma made Matt even more unsettled. He immediately called the production team for medical intervention. A medical helicopter arrived quickly. After examining his symptoms, the doctor diagnosed him with a parasitic infection, likely from beaver rat feces, a common source in the area. Matt had been in the water setting crocodile traps the day before and had come into contact with the parasite. The doctor warned him to stay dry to prevent the symptoms from worsening. Matt, distressed, asked what would happen if the symptoms worsened. The doctor explained that the parasites would burrow under the skin, spread, and cause severe infections and tissue necrosis. The swamp area was humid year-round, and their main food sources were in the water. The infection posed a significant health risk to Matt and limited his water-related skills. After a tough decision, A sense of duty and honor made Matt decide to stay. Though not shown on camera, the doctor likely administered antibiotics, which allowed Matt to continue in the competition. Ryan and Riley were concerned about Matt's condition, but knew their team would likely collapse if he withdrew. Relieved at his decision to continue, the trio stabilized their morale and discussed how to get food. After nearly 3 days without eating and seeing his teammates weakened by hunger, Matt decided to hunt despite his illness. He took a bow and arrow to look for game around the camp, while Ryan also searched for animals to hunt. Ryan caught a lizard first, but it was too small to be of any food value, so he used it as bait in an attempt to catch a fish. Unfortunately, without a proper fishing hook, the bait was quickly lost. While collecting wood by the river, Riley found a crawfish nest and was pleased with the rich ecosystem of the swamp. She considered the crawfish a potential food source in the days ahead. Matt went to the end of the riverbank and spotted a squirrel. Unable to be picky about his prey, he shot an arrow at it, but mid-swing, he stopped and missed. His disease had reduced his accuracy by 30%. Disappointed, Matt retrieved his bow and arrow, realizing he had misjudged the distance. On his way back to camp, he saw another squirrel, but a swamp lay between them, and he couldn't enter the water, so he had to give up. Before leaving, he yelled at the squirrel to fatten up because its life was his. Riley drooled over a crocodile near the camp, estimating it to be around 8 feet long from its visible eyes and nose. Catching it would greatly aid their initial settlement phase. With no food that day, they continued to drink water to stave off hunger. Ryan drank half a can, filling himself with water and complaining about the algae-rich river water, which was nutritious for fish, but nauseating for humans. As he talked, he began to vomit, suggesting his body was not yet accustomed to the water, but might get used to it over time. The narrator explained that Ryan was experiencing hydration issues and fluid imbalance, which could have minor or serious consequences, so they couldn't rely solely on water. That afternoon, Matt was relieved to see scabbing on his infected area, boosting his confidence. Fortunately, a plump gray squirrel jumped on a nearby tree branch. Standing at the camp entrance, Matt took aim and shot the squirrel in the head, bringing it down instantly. Matt's accuracy returned to normal. He noted that although the prey was small and provided limited energy, it greatly boosted the team's morale. Overall, their spirits were lifted from the lows. An adult gray squirrel weighs between 1 to 2 pounds, and although this one was a large adult, it still couldn't be skinned with a curved knife. Instead, Matt used the sharp tip of an arrow to process the food. He roasted it over the fire until it was crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. The large skewer of meat, if broken down, would amount to the size of 5 or 6 northern skewers. The 3 of them tore off the cooked thighs and forelimbs to eat first. Matt bit into the squirrel's head, declaring the brain the tastiest part as it was rich in fat. He shared the remaining half of the brain with Riley, who agreed it was delicious, tasting like dessert with a creamy flavor. Ryan enthusiastically gnawed on the ribs, his previously listless spirit completely rejuvenated as his vitality returned. On the morning of day 6, the sky was filled with lightning and thunder, and it seemed there had been a light rain the night before, which they hadn't noticed, indicating that their shelter was waterproof. The signs of the rainy season were now clear. The trio went to check the crocodile traps by the river and found the bait stolen, but no crocodile had been caught. Matt wasn't too discouraged. He reassured his teammates, saying, "This means our method is effective. We just need more patience." The original bait was too small, and the hook was exposed, making crocodiles cautious and quick to detach upon feeling the hardness of the hook. "This time, with a bigger bait, we can increase the success rate," Matt said, as he used the crawfish Riley had caught to replenish the bait before heading to the second trap. Meanwhile, the sound of a mullet slapping the water came from another direction of the river. Matt estimated the distance between the mullet and the riverbank, realizing that the hook wouldn't reach, and they would need to use a bow and arrow instead. Matt aimed to catch the mullet, not for eating, but to use as additional bait for the crocodile trap, making the crocodile their only target. "Shooting a fish in the water from a distance is not easy," he commented. considering the issue of water refraction, making it hard to judge. Matt's first arrow hit the mullet, but was not fatal. The mullet struggled desperately on the water's surface. After discussing, Ryan decided to swim into the water to retrieve the mullet. He caught the nearly dead mullet, but it slipped from his grasp like a bar of soap and disappeared in a flash. In the end, Ryan only retrieved the arrow, which was still valuable since arrows were scarce consumables, ensuring they would not run out of prey. In Matt's hunting career, he knows that a fatal injury is essential for a successful capture. For large prey, he aims an arrow directly into the chest cavity. For smaller animals, he targets the head with one arrow, leaving little chance for escape. However, shooting fish with arrows is different. The water reduces the speed and force of the arrow, and the fish's small head makes a headshot highly unlikely. Even a successful headshot would be costly if the arrow is lost. The trio discussed a new approach, and Matt decided to modify the arrow by adding a ring to its tip, acting as a drag device. This would keep the arrow lodged in the fish upon impact, preventing escape and loss of the arrow. Aware that the modification would alter the arrow's trajectory, Matt adjusted his force and angle accordingly. He waited for a moment of fish distraction to shoot, causing a piercing wound with the arrow remaining in the fish. Ryan immediately dived to retrieve the caught fish, which left him amazed, as if witnessing a miracle. Riley was stunned, describing the shot as if it hovered just above the water, which was incredible. Ryan asked Matt if this was a unique fishing technique, to which Matt replied it was a spur-of-the-moment idea he had never tried before, surprised by its success. By modifying the bow and arrow, Matt demonstrated a technological advantage, proving that science and technology are primary productive forces. His subsequent hunts showed his ability to obtain significant food rewards with minimal effort, and his unique approach to problem solving. While the mullet had significant food value, he chose to use it as bait for catching a crocodile. After returning to camp, a heavy rain began, posing a risk of penetrating their shelter. The trio hurriedly collected plant fibers to reinforce the felt roof, enhancing the waterproofing and sealing to protect their fire and maintain a dry habitat or risk losing their resting place. Louisiana has a year-round rainy season, significantly increasing the challenge. Matt's team is in high spirits, standing together in the rain, chanting their team slogan. After shouting, they quickly realize how cold the rain is and rush back to camp. The rainy season brings a significant drop in temperature, fortunately without the added harshness of a northern monsoon. It is still a south wind blowing. Despite this, due to severe leaks in their shelter, Matt's team suffers from the cold that night, and their sleeping comfort urgently needs improvement. The next morning, Matt observes the sky covered with thick rain clouds blocking the sunlight, making the temperature and humidity uncomfortable. However, the rainfall brings a lot of vitality. The rainwater cleanses the ground and brings fresh water molecules, improving the condition of Ryan vomiting after drinking river water. They boil a pot of rainwater, and Ryan eagerly drinks it, finding it delicious and quickly alleviating his dehydration. After the rain, crayfish swarm out along the riverbank. Louisiana is the original home of these crayfish, and just yesterday, I ate 4 pounds of garlic-flavored ones, the same species eaten in the competition. Matt leads everyone to catch crayfish. His thick arms make it difficult, but Riley's slender limbs give her an advantage. Despite her slight fear of possibly encountering snakes in the burrows, she risks it for food and soon catches a huge one. Ryan also catches a large one. Their main task today is catching crayfish in the morning, strengthening the shelter's felt roof in the afternoon, and enjoying a big crayfish meal together in the evening. The storm finally subsides overnight, and it is now the 7th day of the challenge. The previous day's storm clearly impacted their shelter, soaking several deerskins now drying. They kept 2 crayfish from last night to use as bait in a crocodile trap. According to Matt's experience, crocodiles need the visual stimulation of live prey to approach a trap. Tying a crayfish to the trap's hook, its struggles stimulate the crocodile's predatory instincts, greatly increasing the chances of catching one. Matt securely ties the crayfish used as bait, and the trio heads to the trap site. They reach the riverbank and see an 8-foot crocodile, its eyes fixed on them and constantly shifting angles to observe, its gaze filled with friendliness. Matt sets a new crocodile trap using the crayfish and checks the old trap from yesterday, only to be disappointed to find it undisturbed. It seems that crocodiles are not very interested in stationary bait. Matt surveys the riverbank's terrain. Many trees and algae block the crocodile's view, preventing them from noticing the bait on the trap. The terrain also poses significant obstacles if a crocodile is hooked, hindering the process of dragging it to shore. Therefore, they must choose a better spot to set the hook. The next day, they rested at the camp. Ryan noticed a long bamboo drifting down the swollen river, about 20 feet in length. There are no bamboo groves in this area, so this bamboo must have floated from another watershed. He thought it could be used as a tool to handle the crocodile and quickly retrieved it. After the crocodile was hooked, Matt couldn't enter the water. It was quite dangerous for him to deal with an 8-foot crocodile alone. With this bamboo pole, they could drag the crocodile ashore by pulling the hook. Then, he and Matt could work together to subdue it without any problems. When not catching crocodiles, the long bamboo pole also served well as a fishing rod. However, Matt pointed out the best use for this bamboo pole. With it, they could place the bait in more open water, closer to the crocodile's active area. Matt mentioned some issues with the riverbank when he checked the crocodile trap yesterday. Today, he specifically recorded a VCR to explain in detail. The aquatic plants on this riverbank are too dense, limiting where they can place the traps. Moreover, the crocodile's view is often blocked by the plants, making it impossible to see the traps in most spots. Matt also said that the crocodile was very curious. Yesterday, when they went to the riverbank to set the bait, the crocodile kept watching them and seemed to be slowly approaching. This shows that as long as there is something alive that it can see on the riverbank, it will be interested and come over. In the evening, they came to the riverbank again and started building a crocodile dock. They chose a large fallen willow tree, cleared the surrounding weeds, and made it easy to climb onto the tree. The tree canopy led them into deeper and more open areas of the river. Using the length of the long bamboo pole, Ryan repositioned the trap over the water surface beyond the aquatic plants, ensuring the crocodile could see the moving crayfish. After Ryan hung the crocodile hook in the middle of the river, Matt adjusted the height of the hook to avoid being too high, which might prevent the crocodile from reaching or swallowing it deeply, and too low, which could be submerged if the water level rose. Then, Matt set the knots for the crocodile rope, using the tree branches' protrusions to tie several knots, creating a mechanical fulcrum that the crocodile could not escape from. Everything set, the brothers fist-bumped to celebrate their satisfaction with the trap. They returned to the camp as it had already gotten dark. All three were a bit tired, with Riley lying down to rest first. Matt and Ryan sat by the fire, summarizing the day's achievements while trying to relax. The night camera of the crew kept working, showing the crocodile already under the hook, starting to swallow the bait. The noise of the crocodile biting the hook alerted Matt. Riley, shaking off her fatigue, excitedly wanted to go and see, clenching her fist, saying it was crazy. Matt suggested they just listen to the noise and come back, planning to retrieve the catch in the morning, as it was too risky to handle a crocodile at night. In the pitch dark, the trio could only grope forward by listening. They clearly heard intense splashing on the nearby river and the trembling of branches, even the sound of bubbles bursting made by the crocodile. Riley announced she couldn't sleep tonight due to the excitement. Pretending to be modest, Matt said, "I feel guilty it took a week for you to taste crocodile." At dawn the next day, Matt gathered everyone at the camp entrance to plan their strategy. Using props on the ground as a demonstration, he assigned everyone a task. He positioned Ryan to go first, climbing the tree used as the crocodile dock to retrieve the trap's rope. He cautioned Ryan to be careful not to fall and to observe the crocodile's movements while gradually loosening the rope. As he retreated to near the shore, they could forcefully pull the crocodile ashore, At this point, Matt would lasso the crocodile's head to prevent it from opening its mouth. Once subdued, it was at their mercy. Riley's job was to assist Ryan as he neared the shore, helping drag the crocodile ashore like a tug of war. Once on shore, Riley would control the rope, while Ryan would deliver a fatal stab through the crocodile's skull. Matt reminded him that this fatal strike had to be swift and clean to prevent the crocodile from performing a death roll, complicating the situation. Ryan had previously soloed crocodiles in other swamps, so he agreed without concern or pressure, admiring Matt's strategy of control, support, and damage. When the three arrived at the crocodile dock, they indeed found a crocodile trapped there, staring at them with a gentle gaze. Matt, leading the way, needed to assess the crocodile's condition first. He observed that the crocodile, tormented by the steel hook all night, was nearly powerless, with its health bar empty. He also noticed an unexpected amount of algae entangling the water surface. Matt adjusted their original plan on the spot, bending down to clear the algae by hand and using a bamboo pole to clear distant algae, exposing the resigned and doomed head of the crocodile. Riley and Ryan held the crocodile rope tightly. Matt charged ahead, facing the crocodile directly. He used his left hand for balance and a wooden stick in his right to test the crocodile's aggression. Seeing that the crocodile was not very reactive, he leaned forward, using his hands to clear the dead branches and aquatic plants covering the water. Unexpectedly, the crocodile suddenly lunged, nearly biting Matt's knee. Riley had never seen such a fierce scene and couldn't help but exclaim repeatedly. As the crocodile thrashed in the water, Matt continued to clear debris entangling the crocodile rope. He instructed his companions to slightly loosen the rope to avoid provoking the crocodile again. After dealing with the tangled rope, Matt took advantage of the crocodile's open mouth to loop another rope over its upper jaw, gaining double control. The frightened crocodile struggled violently. Matt stood up, had Ryan hold the rope, and retreat to the shore. Riley untied the last knot of the crocodile rope tied to a branch. Ryan started a tug-of-war with the crocodile. Matt pulled on the rope on the upper jaw, exerting upward force, dragging the crocodile out of the water plants, hopelessly exposed before them. Matt and Ryan continued to exert upward and forward force, dragging the crocodile onto land. Ryan prepared for a lethal blow. He handed the rope to Riley, who wound it around a tree trunk and secured it, stepping into an assisting position. Matt and Ryan squatted down to observe the crocodile's condition, discussing the safest angle for the strike. They exchanged words that sounded like both psychological reinforcement and ritualistic bravado. Ryan, in a horse-riding crouch, struck forward with the knife, targeting the crocodile's cervical nerves, then quickly retreated after the strike. Seeing the crocodile's glazed eyes, Matt pounced forward, pressing down on the crocodile's head while his companions swiftly controlled other parts of its body. Riley, with her adrenaline surging, straddled the crocodile. The three couldn't hide their excitement and anticipation over their catch, lifting the crocodile to carry it back to camp. Before feasting, they needed to butcher the massive creature, but they weren't in a rush to start the next steps. The intense emotional impact of those few minutes, dangerous, thrilling, and satisfying, had overwhelmed them. From the pituitary gland to the adrenal gland, from dopamine to endorphins, their biological indicators were off the charts. The comrades snuggled closely, experiencing and releasing joy. Only by returning to inner calm could they continue their work. But this would take some time. By 2:30 p.m., they had already partially processed the crocodile, slicing the lean meat for easy storage. They used the shelter's campfire to gradually dehydrate it into smoked jerky. Ryan praised Riley's smoking technique, enjoying the aromatic scent of the meat. Imagining himself as a butcher shop owner, he lay amidst the smoked meats, satisfied with his team's prosperous and harmonious survival state. The four essentials of survival, water, shelter, fire, and food, were perfectly balanced. Yesterday, with limited time for cooking, everyone had a simple meal of grilled meat. Today, marking the 10th day of the competition, the campsite was filled with recently cut ingredients intended for consumption. Ryan planned to stew crocodile rib soup. They chose the fattest part of the tail, separating the ribs, surrounding muscles, and subcutaneous fat. First, they roasted the pieces over charcoal until they were fragrantly crispy, inducing a Maillard reaction with the fat sizzling and aromatic. Then, they stewed it in a pot with water until tender. The three of them devoured the stewed meat without leaving any leftovers, and Ryan drank all the soup, which was oily, with at least half being fat. Drinking it was like consuming a large spoonful of butter, utterly satisfying. Matt chewed on the meat while giving it 5 stars, noting the lean parts resembled pork ribs, and the soup base was like old hen soup. Matt and Ryan gorged themselves until they were nearly oxygen deprived, as blood rushed to their stomachs, reducing their brain's oxygen supply. Riley, still not over her excitement, ate a bit of meat and then lay down to rest.